Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Torri Webster. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to That Digital Take. I am very excited for today. Today, I have Camille Moore on the podcast. Very pumped to have you here. Camille is a branding expert. She's also the president and co-founder of Third Eye Insights, and she helps make brands better. She makes brands see their most valuable parts of their business, which is their social media and growing their brand and the art of the brand. That is her podcast. And she's also a close personal friend. So this is going to be a special treat to have Camille here today. Thank you so much for being here.
So, you were literally my first guest.
Yeah.
So what a long time coming.
This is a perfect full circle moment. So let's just dive right in. I have so much to cover with you. You are the branding expert of the internet. So I want to kind of go backwards first, because what I find so intriguing and exciting about what you do is that not only are you concerned about what brands are doing online, you're also very strategic about your own personal brand. So how do you manage sort of developing and creating content that's meant for you and building your brand, but then also at the same time, like versus when you're putting energy into building other people's brands? Like, how do you manage your time, and where is your priority when it comes to brand building? Is it your brand? Is it the other person's brand? Where do you land on this?
Well, it's a difficult space to get into, because in the beginning, when you're creating content and you have a business, your clients are like, well, any hour you're not focusing on me, that's like public, it's a moment you're taking from them, right? There's that kind of awkward in the beginning when like they didn't come in from content. So it's like,
sure.
And even though it's a ridiculous statement, like obviously you're not 24 hours a day working on that client,
Right.
that like beginning period is tough. So in the beginning, it was definitely, and it's what I talk about a lot too, because the path, like what I'm about to answer of like how much I put into my content is not where I started. And
Sure.
I think a lot of people online over glorify getting to like 4, 5, 6, 7 posts per day, and like how impossible that is as a business owner.
Absolutely.
Like to start out, like
Yeah.
it's like it's
That's an insane amount of output.
So now at this point in my life, creating content generates business. So it's
Right.
something that I've like, it's a necessary evil. I've accepted it.
Yeah.
I now time block. So typically I'm recording, I try to get out like as things are breaking news, like I'll create a piece of content per day.
Sure.
But for the most part, I'm usually blocking. Transparently, I re-record 1 podcast per week. That results in 3 clips.
Yeah.
I'll have an episode with a guest. That's like 2 to 3 clips. And then typically I'll do like a batch content where we'll record usually in one setting, like 15 to 20 iPhone videos. But like, again, it's taken me like years to get here. Like I'm good at it now.
Totally.
So we're getting out about 3 to 4 per day, but like I've never been more focused on my work and more productive. So it's just about time blocking and like batching and like seeing. I now color code my calendar. So if you open up my calendar, anything that's blue is like work blocks. Anything that's purple is recording. So I'm able to get it all done because I just manage my time better.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And also a very honest answer, because it's like someone that might be wanting to either start in the industry or grow their business. It does seem daunting to start. And
Totally.
The reality is, like, when you are starting, no matter how you want to spin it, your output does have to be higher. Like, you have to kind of somehow break through the algorithm or get that initial 10K or 20K just to sort of get that reputability. Did you find that once you kind of hit those milestones, it was easier to pull back and then really focus your energy back on your clients?
The way that I approached it, it actually never really took away from growing the agency, but I also grew slower. Like I was on one hand, the people that can create a lot of content and can build businesses overnight also often don't have businesses. So we're having kind of 2 different conversations. There's someone that's like, I'm prepared to leave my job. I don't need to work for 2 or 3 months. I'm going to quadruple down on content and build a consulting agency. And like, you can do that. But then there's also a lot of people that see the necessity of, I have a business. I understand that I need to have a better pipeline because referral is no longer enough.
Yeah.
And I'm going to approach creating content. And to your point, like, it's not even necessarily about breaking through the algorithm initially. It's just building those skills. Like you have to go to the gym every single day to start losing weight. Like you're not going to lose 50 pounds in a month or 2 months. And there's the Ozempic cheats, like I can give you those cheat hacks of like, viral hooks, like how to be controversial. But like ultimately, if you're building it for longevity, you just have to start. Cause like, that's the other thing too, is we're talking to different people. There's a lot of people who are like amazing in their jobs and aren't creating content. And they're like, this is literally horrifying for me to like put a video out. But like, you just have to start.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have a perspective on this too, in the sense that it's a little bit, I don't know, upsetting is the wrong word, but it is humbling to see that no matter what industry you're in, it is sort of demanding that people be creators, even though they don't necessarily want to be. Like, and we've talked about this. Like, it's not that a lawyer wants to be a creator or that a spa owner wants to be a creator. And it's almost forcing this whole generation of people that really genuinely just, one, don't care. And then secondly, don't want to take that on to either force them to get into creating content, either one, to grow their business, or two, to grow their services and grow their service offerings and grow their audience. So like, how do you deal now with dealing with brands that come to you that say, we don't really want to be the face of our own content, but we do want to grow on social? How do you kind of manage that expectation?
Well, I think it's actually kind of a controversial conversation, because the simple answer is like, EGC, like employee generated content is like a fantastic way to humanize your brand. It allows you to like show more about the brand instead of it being like the founder show. And for a lot of founders, they also feel that like there's an egoicness to the brand being about them when they're such a small part of like what makes the brand fantastic, which I hear. However, it's also really complicated for where EGC is going, because on one hand, from where I stand, I love EGC because it's like, it's super engaging. It's like, it humanizes it. It doesn't sell, right? Like it's not focused hyper on selling. So like it checks all the boxes. I also love it because anyone that's prepared to do employee generated content, they're generating skills that are translatable and future proof, recession proof. Like if you're a young person and you're prepared to do EGC at your jobs, you're just worth so much more money.
Interesting. That's a good perspective.
But where does it go from a compensation model, right? Like if you're contributing to driving 10x value for the company and you're an employee that's like in marketing, what does that look like for compensation? And people aren't talking about that. So it's like, it's complicated because there's definitely things to do that you should do, but there's a big pendulum that's about to swing when it comes to employee rights. And like, we're not talking about it.
Meaning ultimately, do you see it like someone should be gaining almost percentage shares in a company? If they're gaining that much traction and creating that much, ROI for a company, should they be getting a percentage of like this ad revenue model? Like, how do you see the future of that?
Well, there's that, or there's the, do you just upfront negotiate a
better deal,
a huge contract? Like but then where it's complicated is like, now the business owner is like, well, how can I justify, like, okay, so an entry-level marketing job is $60,000. Well, I'm 22. I'm fantastic at TikTok. I think that my job's actually worth $245,000. And I'm not going to do this unless we have that conversation. A business owner is like, this is tempting, but like, I also don't want to pay you until I can see it. And then just, it honestly, it's one of those things where as a business owner, I struggle because I'm in a place where I'm the rainmaker. Like all of the content is about me and my team is fantastic, but it does a disservice to setting up my team to support because like everybody only wants Camille.
Right.
So then the secondary question is like, okay, well then let's market the team.
Right.
And then, but I'm also sitting there as a business owner and I'm like, okay, well, how do I do this? Like, how do we do this?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I don't think we'll solve that problem today. And I'm sure some of these other questions will also fall under this same topic, but sort of on a different shift. But how do you feel like creators, because you deal with like, Fortune 500s, these very corporate standing clients, how do you feel like an everyday creator could actually steal from that world, or the reverse, how a corporate could steal from a creator when it comes to branding specifically, because that truly is your area of expertise?
Well, I think the big thing is actually really understanding personal brand.
Sure.
Because creators understand having buckets. They understand having like a community, having a niche, but you're not really hearing the hyper focus on personal branding enter into the field. And that's what for the most part, for these bigger brands, they're leaning into more B2B personal branding. Like ultimately, Fortune 500 companies are not really doing anything interesting, honestly.
Okay, fair.
The things that they're doing that are interesting are more understanding the role that the executives play when it comes to like LinkedIn and personal branding. That would be kind of the big piece. I think what's more interesting though in reverse is kind of the issue with this like influencer problem where the huge Fortune 500 companies are just hoping influencers solve their sales problems.
Yeah.
And I think that
which is clearly not happening.
But it's also not a creator's problem.
Sure.
I think what the big companies can learn from creators is that like the creators that are winning online understand strategy, and all that you see are numbers to purchase. So the brands that are doing well on both sides of the creators are ones that are thinking with strategy, and that's what gets missed with branding. Good branding is actually like tactical strategy and execution.
Sure.
It's not just like pretty things and like paying people off.
Of course, yeah. And where is your line on your own personal brand when it comes to strategy? Like, is that something that is that a weekly concept with your team about what the strategy is based on what's trending? Is it quarterly? Like, what does that look like for you in terms of social content and strategy? Like, how much time is that taking up for you?
It's like an all day thing.
Right.
Like our goal and job is like to break the news. Actually, you taught me this years ago. Funny enough, I quote you all the time in business meetings. The creator
if you're not
has
first,
changed.
you're last.
if you're not breaking the news, you don't ride the algorithm. In fact, like we had a video we dropped literally yesterday on the election, and it didn't do well. And we're like, why? Because we dropped it. It's already over.
Yeah.
It was on Tuesday.
It's crazy.
But what most people miss is that like if you're not breaking the news, like the algorithm only allows a few of that message to ride the wave, and you got to go fast. So like we are so focused on breaking news, trending topics, and it's exhausting, but it's also not the place to start.
Okay.
Because most people it takes so much muscle memory of building it up to like, it's not enough to have the story.
Yeah.
Then you need the hook.
Yeah.
Then you need the angle. Then you need how to tie it together so that it's interesting. Like,
and shot and look good and lit and
edited. And have all of those pieces in place, either the investment for people to do it while you're working or the wherewithal to do it while you're working, which honestly, that's a whole other thing too, is like full-time creators are minimized. It's like, it's a literal exhausting job. Like you're going to events and doing same day edits to get it out the same day. Like it's beyond you check in and you check out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It can be oversimplified, but I think when people see it in practice or they themselves then try to create content, that's always a very awakening experience for people. It's very easy to look outside in being like, oh yeah, they shoot content, whatever. The second someone tries to do it for themselves, whether that means turning around a reel, turning around a video, even just having viral content in general, they start to see a whole other side of it and perhaps more appreciation. Sometimes, not always. You talk about balancing community building with revenue. What is the biggest mistake you see entrepreneurs make when trying to do both? So like revenue and also creator building at the same time. Sorry, community building at the same time.
Well, this is the whole issue, right? It's like, where's the marketing conversation? Where's the branding conversation? Like branding isn't measured in a quarter. It's not measured in 30 days. Like I'm at a point where like, if I hear in a conversation, like what is the ROI of this branding conversation? I'm like, here's the door. I no longer speak English. Goodbye. Like, because
you feel misunderstood or because you feel like it's not being, well, you explain.
It's a delusional ask.
Okay, fair.
Like if you're doing something to invest in a brand, like how do you measure? Again, now we're kind of hearing more of like earned media value. Yeah. That's becoming kind of more of like, how do we talk about brand relevance?
Which I thought that was amazing. Everyone was chatting about that after Coachella. And I was like, finally, people are understanding this.
How Revolve decides to spend money.
Totally.
Because for so many investors, for the majority of the business, they don't have like the investor mindset that a Revolve brand has. Because Revolve spends to stay relevant. Yeah. So Revolve is successful because it overspends in relevance, which is really a branding conversation. It's not really a marketing conversation.
True.
Like they're not transacting how many sales occurred over the Coachella weekend.
Right.
They're discussing how many people are talking about, how many people are wearing about it. It's like, it goes back to the BlackBerry movie. Like they basically just did things that allowed the brand to become big. Like, so funny. I was talking to someone the other day and they were at a meeting with Jim, I forgot his last name, starts with a B, is one of the two founders of BlackBerry. And did you know that they did this? They would basically go to like really high-end restaurants or like tennis clubs or like golf courses.
Okay.
And they would just like be on their Blackberries, or they would like start embarrassing.
Like the CNBC model. Like,
yes. Like, and they'd like, basically this woman got yelled at publicly. He like stood on the table and was like, basically like, you're embarrassing for not having a Blackberry. And she became a part of like their marketing campaign because it was all about perception. And it's like, you can't measure that in 30 days. So the point of like building a community, like how do you measure that you've built a community? Like, what is that worth? If it's only worth the sale, then you're never going to have a community because like that's a customer. That's not a tribe.
Different. Yeah.
It's totally different. And like marketing is the sales. Like marketing, there's a role for that. There's an ROI for that. There's a measurable time period for that. But you can't have marketing if you don't have a brand.
Do you feel like when it comes to your piece in it, because obviously you're probably chatting mostly with companies that, one, are either looking to make adjustments to their own brand, or a company that really likes where they're at in terms of their branding, but it could be like an awareness play, or they're just trying to get more people to learn about them. What is your angle when chatting with these companies when it comes to sort of what you're chatting about, which is the education piece, like really differentiating yourself and saying you're not really paying for a marketer here, like you're paying for a branding expert. This could take a lot longer than 30 days, 60 days, even 90 days sometimes, if we're talking about even a luxury brand that really needs to like change their game or change their perspective. Like, what are those conversations like behind the scenes? Like, is it just you like banging your head on a wall being like, I swear what I'm saying is not hitting, like falling on deaf ears, you know? Like, how do you really like, how do you get through the door if it's not based on ROI?
It actually sometimes feels like a low-key, like a Dr. Phil show where like they come in and they think they have this like simple problem, and I'm like, you
diagnose them.
Totally. Like, it's often not a, like, what's hilarious is that every brand that comes in like thinks they're shadow banned, or like
that's
thinks
funny.
They have like a social problem. It's never like, oh, Camille, like our brand sucks. You know, we've made brand decisions.
That's funny. Like, they never really just say like, oh, you know what, our content's just kind of shit, so that's why it's not gone anywhere. Like,
no, never. Not the big brands. The big brands, the brands that are like the sexy brands, the ones like people are excited, like the stories people are excited about. It's always like, you're so good at this. We know it's not our brand. Help us find the video that shadow banned us. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, help us justify to our investors, you know, why we should keep doing top of funnel. And then like, while we're talking about top of funnel and you're analyzing it, you know, let us know what you think about our social strategy. And I'm like, okay, well,
you must have to have some seriously hard conversations with brands and to really get them to look themselves in the mirror and be like,
oh yeah,
guys, like this is,
oh yeah.
And how do you feel like that's made you a better business owner? Because like, that's tough. Like, not everyone can do that and sit with like, you know, quite high end people and just be like, hey, you got a fucking problem here. Like,
well, especially too, because it's like they bring like everybody and their mother onto the Zoom call. You know, there's like, it's like 42 people are on the call.
You're like, how do I gently tell you you've got it all wrong?
It honestly is always one where I mean, I'm doing it now probably like once a week. So I'm pretty used to it now.
Of course.
How has it made me as a business owner? It has made me what's interesting is all of the brands that have brand problems, there's a fundamentally larger issue for why they can't focus on the brand. And I actually think it's what makes the whole topic of branding actually quite complicated. Like, there truly are people who get it, and there's truly people who don't.
Sure.
And the conversations, I find that they are well-intentioned, intelligent people because they connect with the content. Like, there's something to the message that attracts them.
Sure.
And there's something to working with me that they've already effectively hired me because they've watched so many videos. Like there's no shock to what you're getting.
Yeah.
But so there's an alignment for them being the right person for me. But what's complicated is like what makes the Four Seasons or Trader Joe's or IKEA, like these brands so good is I'm actually not the difference because you don't have that intuitively. Like it often lacks actually founder vision. That's the problem.
Interesting.
So like the best brands is like when the founder is almost like savant-like.
Totally.
And that they just
lives and breathes the brand.
Lives and breathes it, has this like mad scientist energy. Like
Charlotte Tilbury.
You can't really see it day to day, but like when you look back over like the 50, like all these micro decisions or how fast they have pace of change.
Oh, interesting.
So a lot of these brands that reach out, they're doing things by an outdated playbook that did never really match the brand, but they're so clunky. Like they don't have innovators. And also the other thing that's sad too is I also find Canadian brands tend to suffer.
Interesting.
Because they don't have almost the like, I don't know
competitive
if it's
edge,
but a competitiveness like the US does where like
probably
they can survive by not being great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
like
another
middle of the road and it just kind of is happening.
It just works because they're Canadian.
Yeah.
And it kind of, and I have actually started saying this to the brands and not in a disparaging way, but in a way of like, I actually want more for you because you're Canadian. And often the issue is that they will succeed when they're Canadian. Also, though, because there's maybe one other competitor.
Yeah, there's less competition.
Like not even that there's like less competition, but there's also like literally less competition. Like there's one other brand. And like you can be of a different caliber with one other brand. So it's... I honestly though, I've never had a brand come in with a social problem where it hasn't been a brand problem.
Interesting. But that's cool to know probably because you know where to start.
But it's also, think about it too, like if you don't know who your target is really, if you don't really know what you're trying to achieve, if you're just posting for posting's sake, that's just not going to do well.
It's like throwing something into the void and hoping that it sticks. Like it's like what? Like,
and there's never been more content.
Right.
Like there's just think about
so saturated.
You know what I most people don't think about is that the average piece of content, like Instagram decides, is not even good enough for the people that have followed you.
Yeah. Totally.
The average piece of content is not even going to your followers. Yeah. Let alone your new followers.
Page.
Yeah. Let alone non-followers.
Totally. Yeah.
And think about like how hard it is. Think about of all the content, not only that exists, now think of all the content that is shown to you on the explore page. Yeah. Think about how much content is selected out based on like the nuance of your algorithm.
And also how interesting it is that exactly to that point, there's so many creators and or brands that sometimes people will mention and I'm like, never heard of them. And it's not to say that they don't have a great platform, that they're not doing amazing. It's just like, yeah, it's so damn saturated. It's like impossible to know everything. So whatever, that's a bit of the negative angle, but on a positive angle, who do you think are one, brands, and then two, even creators where you see branding being just like shocking you, like blowing you away and is fantastic and like is top notch? Like, is there anyone now?
Or so many. It's actually overwhelming. I mean, there's like all this usual suspects, you know what I mean? Like Rode kills it. Yeah. I mean, like Revolve kills it.
The usual suspects.
Yeah. Amalfi Jets. Have you seen them?
No.
Killing it. That's like this jet company. And like basically like I find I'm attracted more to like the Gestad guy. Like the more of these like people who like really did shit differently where you're like claps to you. Like I'm getting slightly annoyed with just like the overblow of beauty budgets. I think time's gonna be up soon and like I felt really passionate about the last Summer Fridays event when it was like, I can't even imagine how much money they spent at that event. And I'm just online. It was so well done.
Yeah, like, this was the one in Los Angeles you're talking about?
Yeah, like the dome where they just had everybody and their mother there.
Yeah.
I really like, kudos to them. Like, well done event. I'm just like bored by it on socials.
Right. And like how special or different is that? It's funny that I went to the same location like 5 days later for the studio premiere with Apple. And I didn't even realize it was the same location because of how they had dressed it up.
I did,
and then I was like, oh my God, this is literally where they...
When you were you were on the red carpet.
Yeah, it was the motion picture like of like where they do all the Oscars like... housing. It's like the museum, but it was just the rooftop of it. But it just made me laugh because I was like, yeah, it's such a different event, but yeah, thrown at the same place. And I don't know if monetarily wise that actually paid off for them or if it didn't. But
well, actually, I got a really good point to that the reason why they do stuff like that is they don't have to pay the individual creators to post in feed. Because like you are more likely to actually post being at that event.
Totally.
So they basically like, instead of spending over $1 million in feed posts, you spend over $1 million for this like super grand event.
Yeah.
Which like, look, I get it. I just feel like it's at a point where that's been done.
Totally.
Like, I feel like the world, it's really interesting meeting the other day. And she said the biggest event in the last 100 years that generated the most millionaires was the IPO of Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
And it was in the early 2000s. Or maybe it was 1997. I might need to have this fact checked, people listening to me. But anyways, the point being is it was either like a few years before or like early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And the point being is like that move is like ultimately of all the things that were happening within the US, also when the economy crashed in the 2000 and 2008. It was a big piece of like how many millionaires there were into the market and like how it basically changed the market. And the point being is that we're now kind of going into, we've had 50 years of incredible wealth, like an insane amount of wealth. Maybe even, she said even more than that. Maybe it was even 80 years, but we've had a period of like significant wealth. And with the move of what just happened with COVID and now the world is like now equalizing out, I feel like we're just going to see less excess from brands. And it's like all the budgets are being cut. And it's not that they're being cut, that they're going to go back. Her whole point, and she's a huge beauty owner, she was like, I think what we saw, we're not actually going to see again. Like from like a gluttony standpoint, like how much money we were spending. And I feel like that event for me was like a slightly out of touch for kind of where we're at from a spend perspective of being a product in Sephora that's meant to give like the average person self-care.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that. And we've discussed this behind the scenes before, but there was even an era 10 years ago when I started where I know you and I would even laugh about like, you know, the PR that would come to my door, or the fact that like I was sent every single shade of a foundation that obviously I was wearing one out of the 20 shades that was being sent to me. And there was this just insane, like the overconsumption was like almost sickening to a point. Like the packaging you could barely recycle because it was like live TV screens getting delivered to your front door. And like, yes, to some degree we've shifted away from maybe that and like some of the PR of it all. But I completely agree that it seems like from an event perspective, some of these beauty brands are slightly behind. They still think that aesthetic luxury event is like what's going to draw in eyeballs. But to your point, and what I see from a consumer perspective, because at the end of the day, I'm a consumer first, is that if I'm not invited to the event, why would I feel one, any type of connection to someone else having this glamorous, fabulous experience? Or two, how is that ultimately driving me to Sephora to pick up the product? And I guess like that's where now we're really seeing the divide, because consumers are so smart and they don't want to buy into someone else having a luxury experience. They want to have that for themselves. So it's like, how do brands shift to basically get consumers excited again about their products and spend less money ultimately while doing it? Because I don't think it's like a spend thing. Like having the most glamorous event is going to equal the most amount of sales. Like I don't see that.
I mean, it's so complicated. Because also, you know, Summer Fridays is also one of the most well-known beauty brands.
Sure.
You know, like, and that's where there's like, but to me, the direction this has to go is just it more authentic.
Yeah.
Like, I think also that people across all socioeconomic categories, I was in another meeting with another beauty founder who is like ultra high net worth and really aspires to have a brand like Summer Fridays. Like Summer Fridays, is definitely not on the low end, but it's also definitely not like a La Mer product. Like it's a really
Sits
well positioned. Yeah. So it's complicated because you do need to spend, and I think a lot of what Summer Fridays does is great. Like they'll do like local pop-ups that are very much not for like the who's who in the zoo. Like it really is for the community. So I do think they're doing a lot correct. I think ultimately what it comes back to is a huge push in authenticity and a huge push in even with the tariffs. Like I think we're just moving in a direction of like we don't need 400 lip balms.
Yeah.
Like you just have one.
It's like the anti-consumerism era. Yeah.
And I actually thought
and you pick your favorite.
You pick your favorite. And like, you know, that's a whole other thing too about the whole thing I feel confusing about tariffs from a branding perspective is you're seeing so many brands scream, but like all I'm seeing in their screaming and showing screenshots of their Slack is like, you have such a massive margin of importing products from China. Like all you're showing me as a consumer is that you actually have this like puffery of a brand that's making me feel like you're actually kind of losing me in this dialogue because you're just reminding me that it's like cheap crap that's like being shipped over on this huge boat. And like, you've been fooling me with like paying for Kendall Jenner to be in this like wrap top in this Pilates and she probably never wears it. And like, I just feel like everything is being blown open right now.
Yeah. And where do you see, I mean, all of us, I say creative industries as a blanket statement, but like, I agree with you. It's funny. Like I've been saying for the last year specifically, again, I don't know if that's a Trump thing, a US, a tariff, a COVID. I don't know where it's come from or if it's just the consumer getting smarter or it's also Gen Z, which is a generation demanding for transparency and just demanding for like this, like honest, like experience online that we're seeing this massive shift in the industry. So what is the answer there? Like I've seen this idea that potentially this could be the death of influencers. This is the death of consumerism. Where do brands go from here and where do creators go from here when everything is, and probably we don't have the answer to this. And if we did, we'd have the crystal ball and it would all be figured out.
And hire us.
And we'd already be ahead of the game. But it's funny because as a creator, it's like, and I mean, I've said this since day dot, it's like, if you're not willing to be nimble in the face of creativity and business, you would have been out the door. I would have been out the door 10 years ago. The whole point of being able to survive in this, or even more than 10 years ago. It's like,
you've been doing this for like 14 years now.
Yeah, it's like the only way to somewhat ride the wave is to actually be open to the change and to in a large way put your ego aside and see the deaths of the industry and see where things are working, where they're not. I guess where I really struggle is like, how do you remain a sustainable business if all of the ads are taken out of the conversation, which that could be the case. Okay. Let's just say that that's the truth and ads are removed from the conversation because creators only need to be putting out organic content. Sure. I see that. And I'm like all for that. But then what is the new revenue model? Is it that the big platforms like the Netflixes, like the Apples, like the streaming platforms, the social platforms, are they the ones that have to now cough up the dollar because they've been getting basically free content for the last 15 years? Like what's the answer? Like how do we, if we move away from the brand model, which I'm all for, and that's great, fantastic, how do we move forward as a creator economy? Because this is $1 billion business. Like the beauty industry is $1 billion business. The creator economy, $1 billion business. Like, what's the shift? Like, I just don't get it.
I think that what's happening right now is that there's a massive leveling off. There's a changing of the guard. You know, like it's all shifting. It's not. I use dramatic language, like it's it died to get to get views, like it's a hook bait. I don't think influencers have died. I think that what's happened is that one, we've been in a perpetual there's actually a term for it and it's called like perpetual capitalism, and the whole point is that like for the last, and again to use her example, like the last 50 years it's been every quarter should be higher. And if every quarter is not higher, we've done something wrong. And it's been a constant of like cutting of corners, basically like IPOing brands, like taking everything that they have, shelling them out. Like you're even seeing this with Aloe. Like Aloe was a great brand. They went public. You saw this with Aritzia. Like I walk in, I'm like,
quality suffers so much.
Quality suffers. Club Monaco. I walked in the day. I'm like, this feels like literally Joe Fresh. You see these brands that like they lose what they had for short-term money in order for like shareholders to get like more boats and more vacations and private planes. And it's like such a small pocket of people. So I think the problem right now is we don't know where it's going, but we've seen change. So it's instead of having the expectation of like perpetually making more, there being a short-term leveling off and a decline, to reassess where your brand is, to figure out how are you going to stay the course.
Yeah.
And it's not ripping ads. It's not ripping UGC. It's not shitting on influencers. And that's another thing too that like frustrates me, that we also talked about offline, is I'm in these meetings, and an influencer with a big following is charging upwards of $150,000 for an in-feed
with
post.
no return. Yeah.
And the brand is at a point where like their sales are down, they're struggling.
Yeah.
They understand the importance of like socials is everything. But the problem is, like, on one hand, it's easy to blame the influencer because they were able to drive up costs because we were in a high, like it was the Wild West.
Totally.
But like also, it's also not the influencer's fault if you're not providing strategy.
Yeah.
Like if you're just saying, hey, all right, so I want to market this. How much does it cost, Torri, for you to post about this cup and, you know, just to talk about these key points? You're like, well, Camille, it's this much money and I'll talk about that cup. Amazing. Here's the cup. Now post about it. And then you're like, okay, great. Here's the cup. And you get your, like, how is that your fault if the brand isn't asking for more, if they're not giving strategy?
It's such a broken system. And we have talked about this, but it's sort of this idea that everybody wants to be the most creative and everybody wants the creator first content. But brands ultimately at the end of the day are too uncomfortable to actually let it happen. And that is genuinely the truth, because I think that brands want deep in their soul to be open and to let the creator do their thing and really do it organically and go balls to the walls and have that really fun off the cuff organic video. No brand is willing to let it happen. They want rounds of approvals. They want you to sign a contract. They want you to sign off on deliverables and key messaging. And no matter how you spin it, it ultimately is going to be somewhat regurgitated from the brand. And like, so then if that is the broken system, and we can see that it is, and that's why currently we're seeing less ad dollars go into influencer marketing. We're seeing less influencer first ads. We're seeing more UGC. We're seeing more EGC. We're seeing all of that. What happens? And this is not like me being like, boo hoo, what happens to influencers? Like, not at all. It's like, I think there's a place that creator-led content can still exist. But I agree with you. It's like the budgets have been inflated. Everyone has always talked about that. It's been the Wild West. People could just throw numbers at the wall and see what hits. And I mean, I've even said this myself. It's like, you don't know you're in the golden ages until they've passed. But realistically, like 2016 to 18, 19 was the golden age for influencer. Like, no matter how you want to spin it. It was post-blogger era. It was Instagram-led content. It was
not saturated.
It was photo. Video had just come along. Instagram stories was kind of at its infancy. Like, we're past the golden age, no matter how any creator wants to see it. Sure, there's this new wave of Gen Z content on TikTok, but already the budgets have been smaller. Already there's more strategy. Brands are smarter. They're seeing they're seeing through it. They have such a high expectation now for what they're going to get from a creator. I guess like my question to you would be like, where do you feel like creators should focus now? Because also for you, branding, I'm sure you're showing brands all the time the metrics they should be looking at, things that are important versus like vanity metrics and what they need to let go of. Where do you feel like there can be an education, honestly, for creators here in this next wave of what maybe they should be focusing on, maybe where their personal branding can be growing, and ultimately maybe where they should be putting their time and money?
Well, like just understanding organic. I mean, I don't know your contract details, but even when I look at, you just did a Coachella recap today. Sure. And like a big part of the Coachella recap was a piece in your Heineken.
Yeah.
And like that to me is such a, like, I don't know if that was part of it, but for you to throw in that clip into like more of an organic recap. It's so funny. Last night I was out for dinner with another client and she ordered the Heineken Zero. And I'm like, why did you order that? Yeah. And she's like, I don't know. And I'm like, she's like, I don't even drink beer. And I'm like,
awareness.
And that was the whole thing is I'm like, well, I've been seeing a lot of creators like posting about it. And she's like, you know what? She goes like, I listened probably to about 3 podcasts and she's like, I didn't even think about it. It's for sure that.
Yeah.
And the point is that
it's so subconscious.
It does work. Yeah. Like that's what I'm, it's not that they don't work. It's that it not only does it work, but it works. It's a piece it's a piece.
It's a piece. That's
like we live on our phones. Like we're not going back to TV commercials, you know, like it's not that it's going back to billboard. Like it's for sure through the phone. The problem is that
it's leveling out.
It's leveling out, but also brands are a mess. Like the internals of these brands are a mess because they're trying to drop. I had this call with this huge clothing brand last week. They're doing 2 drops a week.
In like new items?
Yeah. 2 drops a week. And like at least one of them, at least one every other week is like huge collabs.
Yeah.
Like huge, like rhymes with Remy Roo. Like literally huge brand collabs, and they're just constantly every single, I'm now good friends too with like a lot of friends inside brands because like they love to like, just they're like, we love what you say, but like we can't ever do it, or like we can't ever like it. But the point of what I'm saying is all of these brands are a mess. Yeah. They're constantly being asked. They've got so many balls in the air.
And then influencers do take the bad reputation for that.
It's totally.
Which is fine to some degree. And I always say, don't get into this industry if you don't have thick skin. Like, whatever. That's a part of the game. This is
But it's not your fault.
But no, it's ultimately not my fault. Or my fault or any creator's fault. I think if anything, it's actually really upsetting as the creator because there's so many times I've sat on briefing calls trying to advocate for what could be better or what could be changed. But ultimately, we're up against legal issues. We're up against whether it's like an alcohol brand or just brands that have much more like stringent guidelines on what they can actually post online. It's also like, you know, these are like corporate brands that have just very specific do's and don'ts. Like we're just constantly up against these red lines that are, I don't know, it's fences everywhere. Like you can never just let a creator be.
Well, it's also just, it's so easy to blame the creator because they're this like bright, shiny object that represents eyeballs, that represents potential sales. Potential is like the big word.
Yeah.
You're like, it's also such a weird space because we were fed through infrastructure that like a celebrity had credibility.
Yeah.
Like it felt like a bigger deal if like J-Lo was the brand ambassador than Campbell Hunt Puckett, who has a way better actual like driving push to get someone to buy. Mm-hmm. And like Campbell Hunt Puckett is a nobody, you know, compared to the standard of like, I mean, J-Lo was probably not the best example, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a considered A-list celebrity. Sure. And the point of where these brands have gone is like, there's such a like a snubbery of like, it's annoying to have to pay an influencer who's a nobody, but has generated 500,000 followers, has a community that's primed to buy. That's like, it's literally a live TV show if you think about it, because they're constantly consuming your content morning, all day.
Night, yeah.
But you know, it's actually crazy to me that the average business owner is like, I want to send them product and like hope they like, I just want them to post for free.
Right.
But it's a huge problem.
How long do you think it's going to take for things to level out? Because it's so much education. It's education on the brand side for them to start to learn next steps and what actually needs to adjust and change. It's education on the creator side to get their egos out of their ass and stop charging so much money for content that ultimately is not creating ROI. It's like, it's everything. Like there's so many different, it's agents understanding they can't charge through the roof for what their creators are trying to get because they're not worth their price tag. Like there's so much education. So it's like, how does it adjust and change?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to the answer today because it's complicated.
No, I mean, we won't. And like this is what keeps me up at night, folks. Like genuinely.
Same. I think the simple, like for like the Pandora box that we opened is that brands need to become, where the problem lies is that there is a like net casting.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Is like the brands that are doing the best are really focusing on more like niche communities or like subcultures.
Interesting.
You know, like if you're like, even like the word comfort creator is like was really thrown around this past year. But like when you think about these, like Ellen Warren just did a collaboration with like a Swedish water company, and like it was actually really well done. They basically paid for her to do like a really organic carousel swipe through. Okay. It felt like very much her like Swedish girl aesthetic. Cute. And then like second last of the swipe through was like, you could tell that it was actually like put on by the brand. That kind of content is going to do well. What isn't going to do well is I want a random list of 20 of the biggest influencers or creators in Toronto. We're going to send them a pack of this Flow water and like we're just going to like hope for the best. That's what's dying. And I think that's what it comes down to on the Summer Fridays thing, is that like a lot of the creators that were there were these kind of like PR constructed, more like fashion influencers that you don't really know that much about them. They like aesthetically look very nice, but like times are tough and you want authenticity. Like you want to actually connect with who you follow. And when you're only just like, if you're only just giving things to pretty people, that's going to blow up in a down market.
Long term.
No, unless you're really doubling down on like without all of the problems that comes with it, but like an Abercrombie adjacent brand where you're really selling like a look, like a Sporty and Rich can do that, because
or like a Chelsea Park or like it's like there's certain people that are just, no matter what, it's like you're following them for an aesthetic for this specific vibe
that, and that's a whole thing too, right? Like, but that's also why Becca Bloom blew up, because Becca Bloom is this crazy rich Asian chick, but she's the most authentic and kind,
and so well spoken and like
lovely,
crazy,
like just absolutely lovely. And it shows you, like, even if you read the comments, like there's no one coming for her, because like you're like watching the veins in her forehead twitch to like find the like, no, you're actually a bitch.
You know, like you want to be,
but she's not.
Yeah.
And that's why people love her, is like we're in an age of authenticity. Even it like it just so much so.
Time is flying. Producer in ear saying we're nearly at an hour, which is insane. We just like have so much to cover in this insane industry. So I'll try to wrap it up and ask a few like quick fire. But what is one branding secret or strategy you always use but you never post about?
Ooh, okay. That one? No. A secret branding strategy that I always talk about but I never post about.
Or like, or like maybe it's an editing thing that you do, or like a content secret, or
what I don't actually talk enough about is it's harder to be yourself on the internet than to be a polished version of yourself. And what's really worked for me is just showing up as me and like not being perfect, being able to tell a story when like I don't have the facts. And what I've found is I've like let it ride, and like people will call me out, and I just will literally respond back in the comments and be like, you know what? I wasn't perfect today, but I showed up. And like,
and that's better than you can say. That's 90% of it. No one wants to show up and actually put themselves out there
because they want it to be perfect. And I would say like, I don't talk about that enough, but like what's been really cool is when I respond to those comments that are like, that are accurate, that like not even calling, it's not even evil, like where they're coming from. It's just like literally like, this isn't correct or whatever. And I respect it, because I'm like, how awesome it is that someone stopped it, watched the whole video, gave me 3 minutes of their time, felt something, and sent me a message to tell me. And I'm like, that to me is like, I'd rather show up and watch you be me and like not be perfect, and then
evoke some sort of emotion out of it,
then be perfect. And one, it probably never getting out, and two, like nobody wants perfect. So what's worked really for me is like truly just being me. And it's been really rewarding, because like the people that like reach out are like, I really like you because I can actually like tell you're being you. And the experience when I like see, they're like, it's the exact same. So that's something I don't talk enough about, but like just be you.
Yeah, there's nothing more upsetting than like meeting an influencer and being like, oh my God, they're nothing like, or like they're nothing like how they're perceived online. Like they're like online personality might be like super bubbly and nice and fun, and then you meet them in real life and they have like resting bitch face and they like hate everyone, and you're like, what? Like,
okay, but I got a hot take for this.
Okay.
Most influencers I have found to actually have quite like narcissistic personalities. Like they're very outgoing online, but like
not in real life.
In real life, they're very like, I think that there's actually something that needs to be studied, and that to be able to position yourself so well and to like do such a good job of making everything about you, there's something to that skill set that isn't found in the average person.
Yeah, you have to be so vain. Like
so vain. But like also, but also like you also, I find for the most part, they're typically very introverted in real life.
That's
like
so
you're
interesting.
very rare for like how extroverted and how much you care about
people. But I also
people.
fell into it by accident and was like an actor. Like I had such a different, not saying like I'm different, but just like I do feel like I don't fit the regular mold of like what most creators are. And also like, it's funny because I don't think most creators even have the same skill sets as like people that are actually interested in business or branding or acting or entertainment. So it's like, I do understand what you're saying. If you think about the typical mold of like a YouTuber, like there's been so many times that I think they're going to be so nice and outgoing and fantastic. And then you meet them and they're like super introverted and awkward and like odd. And you're like, oh, okay.
But the reason I bring that up is like for the average person, it's so easy to consume their content and then it looks so easy. And the reason why I like saying that is it's almost like, no, like they have something, it's a skill, but the way that the skill manifests is, the reason why I say this actually is I find most people, they try to create content like they're having a conversation, but like on the internet, you don't need to do all these buffer words. Like you just get straight to the point. And like there's something to their vanity or the egoicness that they're able to completely remove those social cues that have been so drilled in us. Because most people that have strong EQ are not great creators, even though you think that they would be. So there's something to it. I'll come back and I'll give you my philosophy.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. So, but you're just saying from an emotional standpoint, they're able to almost remove the other side of it. It's a one-sided conversation. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yes. Like what we're doing here, it's like, okay, you speak, I pause, then I bring in a few like buffer words and then I get to the core point and then your brain, then we're doing a volley back and forth. Yeah. The average person isn't good at creating content because you're setting up those social cues that are so ingrained from you from like a politeness, from a social EQ perspective, but all of that has to be removed in order, like you have to like get straight to the hook. You have to like have a controversial piece. You have to keep people locked in for the first 10 seconds, which goes completely against those EQ skills. Because the people that I meet that are like really good at their jobs suck at creating content because they've mastered,
they have high EQ.
They've got high EQ.
Yeah.
But there's something to it that like, I'm trying to synthesize, but there's just been so many of the best influencers I've met where I'm like, whoa, like either you're introverted, which doesn't make you suck, or they have a shitty personality where I'm like, there's something to the ability to like remove that.
Interesting.
But to manufacture it so well online, which is fascinating.
Right. The art of influencing, if it was just a learned art, like I guess like someone can ultimately learn, I guess is what we're also saying. Like they could technically hone those skills and become good at that.
Well, you have to, but that's the whole thing is like what I try to teach people, but it's like it's actually extremely difficult to do when you're very good in a human setting, which is like what actually makes you so rare because you're a great interviewer. Like you've got very strong EQ.
Right. Yeah, but I'm not saying I'm the perfect creator. Like, if anything, I appreciate Gen Z because I think they're nuts. Like, they just like sit with the camera on and they just talk out of their ass on a one-way street. They do though, like, and I'm just like, okay, party on. No sense of a digital footprint, no sense of what their future holds, but they're just like, I'm organically me and I'm transparent and you're gonna love it. And I'm like, fair enough.
Well, even actually we're talking about today about like the James Charles, he's like in controversy again. And
he's always in controversy.
Pardon? Yeah. I know. But like, what the funny thing is though, is like, that was the whole thing is like, we were thinking of like a controversial hook today because it's like back in, he's like he's under fire again.
Classic.
And my resident Gen Z, Katya, was like, no, like he created the second account and he's been like making all this funny content. He talked about the election. He's like, he's back. And I'm like, it just shows you like how there's like such a transientness to it of like, if you just keep showing up and you just keep recording content. They also
no
like,
one can cancel
fast.
you. Yeah, no one can cancel you if you don't cancel yourself. Yeah, is basically the thing.
The whole point.
Yeah.
Yes. We have a question from the studio audience.
Met Gala.
Bailey was like in such controversy after doing this video where she was like basically fake.
No, I didn't see this.
Yeah, it was basically because when the war broke, whatever, and then everyone canceled her and they started like making all the videos and she just making her videos. She didn't even address it, but it was like very, very much viral. And yeah, she's not canceled.
Okay, so just because we probably couldn't hear this in the mic, but the idea was that Haley Bailey was canceled, but then she was like, you can't cancel me, and just kept creating content. I mean, yeah, and that's the Gen Z way, I guess. And that's when I'm like, maybe creators can't go away because Gen Z just won't let them. Like,
I don't think creators are going, like, we live through the phone.
Yeah.
And like, the thing that's so cool about creators is that I no longer am told I have to like pick on J-Lo again. I don't have to like J-Lo. Like,
J-Lo's really getting the shit end of the stick
poor
today.
J-Lo. She's really gotten in my content too. Or like Taylor Swift. If I drop Taylor Swift, that gets all the Taylor Swifties going. But my point is that it can't go anywhere. Like, I now the ball's in my court. Like, I have power on who I can follow.
Yeah.
And like, that's what makes it so interesting. I come across these, exactly to your point, these creators every day that have like 500,000 or like 3.1. And I'm like, 27 of my friends follow them. And I'm like, have I been living in a hole? Who is this person? And then I'll like do a skim and I'll be like, nah, not for me. And then I'll move on. But the point is that like, we're now in a world where we have power that we can choose the creator.
I love it. Okay, final question. We're wrapping up. If someone only has like, let's say 1 hour a week and they kind of want to start creating content, but they're a little nervous, maybe they don't have a ton of budget, where do you recommend they start as a branding expert?
Well, it depends. If you have like a local brick and mortar, so you have like a physical business, Instagram is a better platform for like local businesses.
Okay.
TikTok is better for testing content. So I would say like you should have TikTok regardless, because if it works on TikTok, it's going to work on Instagram. And TikTok doesn't punish you. Like, if you post 11 times a day on TikTok and you do like a bunch of different versions, you will just be able to basically see like which of them is going to perform the best. Yeah. So like, TikTok is better for that reason. TikTok is also just better if you have the ability to reach a broader audience. So like, if you're someone that doesn't have to sell by like provincial lines or state lines or like a geographical restriction, TikTok is just going to reach you to more people. The only thing that sucks for me is like, TikTok has really changed since they've lifted the ban.
Yeah.
Like,
the
my
algorithm's
view count,
so different.
My view count sucks. Like, which again is, I think, another leveling out. Like, ultimately, if you're getting thousands of views and you're starting, like, let's even say like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, like 3,000 people saw you. Like,
isn't it weird how we like punish ourselves when you look at metrics? But yeah, if you were filling a studio audience of that many people, you'd be like, holy hell, like 3,000 people are coming. Like, that's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And like, you have the ability to connect with thousands, even hundreds of people every single day. And that's, as a parting piece, that's actually what trips up people the most, is that when you're a business owner, you don't see the immediate gratification of making the time for that piece of content. And it's always easy to like have it be a tomorrow problem. But the issue is like, it never becomes a tomorrow solution if you don't make the time day over day.
Yeah.
So it's ultimately, like, if you're going to be able to connect with, let's say on a high day, like 15 clients, and you could spend 5 minutes to create one piece of content that connects with 150, you've just 10x'd who you were able to connect with within a 10 minutes of your day. But you have to relook at your time value, because you're not marketing, you're branding. And like, you've been here since day one. Like, I've been creating content for 4 years. Like, at what point did someone decide, okay, she's actually legit? You know, like it
doesn't happen overnight.
It's not video 25.
Yeah.
And it's not video 125. It's like how that builds to a brand, like how people get to know you.
Yeah. And the day you plant the seed is not the day you reap the fruit. And that is just the truth.
Damn straight to you,
Webster. You gotta keep working, folks. Camille Moore, thank you so much for being here today. I love chatting with you always. And this was just very special and a full circle moment. So thank you so much for your time. Okay. Love you, mean it. See you in the next episode. Bye.